Everyone's favorite part of deer season is just around the corner. Bucks are going to start thinking a lot more with their balls than their brains, and they're going to be a lot easier to trick. But that doesn't mean that bucks become stupid and you're going to have an easy time tagging a mature buck chasing a doe. Your tactics need to change, and if you know what you're looking for, those bucks are leaving signs everywhere. And once that rut hits, you need to be ready. So in this video, we're going to go over 5 tips to hunting the rut. But before we get into the tips, do me a favor, and if this is your first time on my channel, hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload a video. And tip number 1 is you got to find the does. It is much easier to look for does during the rut than it is to look for bucks. Rutting bucks patterns are basically non-existent. They are just running wild looking for receptive does. Does, however, are pretty much on that same food cover pattern. About the only time you see a doe just running wild is because a rutting buck is chasing her, pushing her wherever he wants her to go. Bucks will travel downwind of food sources and bedding areas that does frequent, and they are looking for that estrus scent. They're trying to find which does are ready to breed, which means that your job is trying to figure out how you can intercept that buck looking for those does. And that brings us to tip number 2, and that is you have to find the funnels. The difficult part about hunting a mature rutting buck, other than trying to figure out where he's going to be, is how you're going to be able to get close enough to capitalize on that opportunity. Since bucks are going to try to get downwind of these popular doe areas looking for a receptive doe, you cannot be between him and that doe area. The trick is you got to figure out how you can put him in the middle, and that's where finding these funnels is very important. Every habitat will have unique features that control movement patterns. On farms, it's going to be tree-lined fence rows and narrow strips of timber. In big wooded areas, it's going to be things like creek bottoms, hardwood ridges, and edges between habitat types. And tip number 3 is you need to find the hot sign. Bucks are constantly leaving signs during the rut. Whether that's scrapes or rubs, they are letting you know where they are. Fresh rubs will have shavings down at the base of the tree, and depending on the type of tree that the rub is on, you might see some sap or just a general dampness where they've shaved away the bark. A fresh scrape will have prints in it. It might even have a damp spot where that buck has peed in it, and it definitely won't have any leaves in it. The most important part about a scrape, though, is you need to make sure that it has an overhanging limb. If it doesn't have a limb on it, you need to just pass it up, because chances are that's just a random scrape that's not going to get revisited. And tip number 4 is you have to appeal to that buck, whether that's through his ears or through his nose. Grunt calls, rattling antlers, and estrus scents are a staple in every hunter's backpack coming into the rut. They are great tools for trying to get a rutting buck into range. A grunt or a rattling sequence is a challenge to a dominant buck, and if it's done right, he will come charging right in looking to clear out his competition. And don't be afraid to blind call during the rut. Sometimes it's just what you need to get a buck's attention that wasn't even heading in your direction. And the same goes for scents. Bucks are already out looking for estrus scent, trying to find receptive does. So if you can artificially provide that estrus scent, it might be just what you need to get that buck heading your way. And tip number 5 is you just have to be out there under the right conditions. I know everybody hears the saying that you can't shoot them from the couch, and while I know that's true, I kind of just roll my eyes every time I hear it. Of course you can't shoot them from the couch, but it's like a lecture I would hear from my parents for the 100th time. I know that's what I'm supposed to do. However, you can't just be out there. You have to be out there under the right conditions when things are advantageous to you. Bucks do get crazy during the rut, and they will provide you with some opportunities that outside of the rut you probably wouldn't have. However, that doesn't mean that you can ignore the wind, you can hunt the same spot over and over again, and you can get a little lax with how you approach your stand. And when you find funnels that have hot sign, like we talked about earlier, you need to make sure you're hunting it at the right time. You need to make sure that the wind is right for you and that you can approach it without bumping a lot of deer out of it. If you find a good spot, you're in a good funnel and there is a ton of sign, and those conditions aren't right, don't ruin that great spot because you're too stubborn to find a new one. There's always another spot you can go where conditions will be right for you and you won't alert deer to your presence. Once you alert deer to your presence, that's just about it. If it's a mature deer, you may not see him ever again. So that was 5 tips to hunting the rut. If you've got any more tips, make sure you leave those down in the comments below. Make sure you hit that like button if you like this video, share it if you found it helpful, and make sure that you are subscribed so you can stay informed.